So welcome back to the February 2024 layout update. This is video number 2 in a series of 12 that I've committed to make this year. In this video, I'm going to talk about a pair of structures that I'm building, large apartment complexes. I am custom painting some cast-off equipment to create a unique GO train that I am playfully referring to as GO Train's worst train. I made a few small purchases this past month that I'd like to review with you. And finally, an N-scale layout tour. Let's get started. Early in the month, I released a video about building N-scale chain link fences. This was a pretty straightforward project, but it was something I'd wanted to work on for a while, and I wanted to come up with a reasonable technique for building fences. In the video, I had mentioned that I had purchased some Woodland Scenics fences. They're great, but for the amount of fence you get and the price point on a layout like this, which is going to be covered with all sorts of barriers, they're just too cost prohibitive. And in the entire project, really, the biggest hassle is trying to attach the lattice, the mesh, to the different support frames. So the video was mostly about how I came up with a technique that works well for me that is going to let me build fences fairly quickly and consistently, and also really cheaply. And being able to make fences quickly means that I'm going to be able to start playing with different vignettes. And knowing that every section of fence costs less than 5 cents, I can just continue to print them, put them together, and put them up. It's a lot like ballasting. Wherever I see a place that needs to be ballasted, I'll ballast it, and any place that I want to put a fence, I'll put a fence. Another project that I started this month that I am very hopeful will be wrapped up in the next few weeks is a pair of apartment towers that I'm assembling. These towers are kit-bashed from a pair of Outland Models apartment kits. This represents 2 kits that have been reconfigured to make these much broader, wider buildings. The cost of the kits were about $9 a piece or $10 a piece. So I have a pair of 12 or 13 story buildings for $20 that look like ruddy old apartment buildings. One of them is done as a 3-dimensional model that I'll be able to move around the layout as a standalone building. And the other has been done as a background flat. And I've not yet decided where either of these buildings go, but they definitely will find a home on the layout. So this project is inspired in part by the work of my friend Wayman at ProScale Models and my friend Tim at They Make It Like That. Both of them have been working on a pair of graffiti towers based on real-life events. Wayne has made a fairly faithful reproduction of an apartment building that's been blasted by graffiti artists as part of, I believe, a Miami Art Biennale. And Tim is building a replica of the Ocean View apartments, which have been in the news lately. In the case of ProScale Models, the building is apparently scheduled for demolition. The Ocean View Apartments is a billion-dollar development that was allegedly abandoned by the developer a few years ago and has been left to rot. So I would like to reproduce some of those effects with a pair of apartment buildings of my own. I'm going to attempt to add graffiti to every single one of the balconies, much like the 2 other art projects. And I'm going to try to do the graffiti using laser cut stencils. I'm not confident in my ability to create original tags for every single floor, so I am duplicating the tags that you can find on any of these buildings and laser cutting stencils so that I can, in theory, airbrush the stencil of the graffiti on it, airbrush the color, and then go back with some marker pens and clean them up. If that's the case, it's going to be a really successful project for me because I want to be able to add graffiti around the layout more quickly than I'm able to doing it freehand. I just pick out some stencils, spray on the graffiti, touch it up with a pen, and that sort of process is what suits me. Another project that I'm working on is a project that I'm going to call GO Transit's Worst Train. And this is a project that has several points of inspiration. So, for anyone who models N-Scale and models Go Transit, you will know that there is very little equipment out there that is at least new for Go Transit. Bi-level passenger cars haven't been released for a number of years, and it doesn't look like there's a plan in the near future to release them. And there's limited engine options as well. So this project is multifactored. The first one is that I wanted more Go Transit engines, so that's what I'm working on, and you can see right here. The second part of this project is that I had old equipment that you would consider to be near junk, that I wanted to see if I could revive and turn into at least usable, if not visually appealing equipment for the railroad. And the last source of inspiration is a little more complicated and maybe a bit convoluted. So this year there has been a number of releases, particularly from Bachmann, the new Siemens Charger, the Venture Via Rail passenger train. This is a beautiful train. I would love to have this train. The problem is it is prohibitively expensive. And that got me a little bit disillusioned with the hobby insofar as the things that I would like are incredibly expensive. So I took it as a challenge to say, well, I'm going to flip this and say, well, I'd like a new passenger train, and I'm going to try to assemble a unique passenger unit using old equipment that I redo and make it somewhat prototypical but obscure. I also want to practice the idea of custom painting engines, decaling them, and getting into things like weathering. I have not weathered any rolling stock, as quite frankly I'm nervous about it. So this is an opportunity for me to see if I can bring some old stock back to life, make it run well enough, learn how to apply custom paint jobs, decal them, and ultimately learn how to weather some of this stuff. I have enjoyed this project to date, but there has been some significant hiccups along the way. And what you see here, the paint jobs as they stand as of today, are complete redos. I have painted these once, stripped them, and repainted them again. I'm happy with this paint job, but the previous paint job did not turn out. So this has been a very, very valuable learning experience. In keeping with the theme of Go Transit's worst possible train, I made a few small purchases this past month, and I decided that there was two things that I wanted. First of all, I've had a real tough time finding used smooth side passenger cars. I'm just looking for Concours or Kato cars, and they don't seem to exist on any of the auction sites because typically the passenger cars, the smooth side passenger cars, come in sets with diners and observation cars, and that's not what I want. I just want smooth side passenger cars. So one of the proto-inspired purchases I made was a set of Chicago and Northwestern bi-level passenger cars. These actually made appearances in Toronto for Go Transit as they were evaluating this style of passenger car. My understanding is that they ran for about 9 months before Go Transit decided that these were going to be insufficient for what they needed and commissioned the construction of what we now know as the standard bi-level passenger cars. So the cars were very affordable. It's older stock, it's got Rapido couplers, but for what they cost and with the shipping, it was a purchase I'm very happy with, and now I have a small fleet of prototype-inspired passenger cars. So the bi-level passenger cars and the smooth side passenger cars that I ordered came from Model Train Market. And really, I'd like to share that the experience in dealing with these people was fantastic. As said, I was having a lot of trouble finding stock that I wanted to be able to pick up at local train shows and online. I don't remember why I got onto their website, but they have a lot of what I'm interested in. Again, it's a little bit older stock, a lot of Rapido couplers, but in terms of the price and the shipping, very, very reasonable from my perspective. Additionally, one of the shipments ran into some problems with the courier, and the people at Model Train Market were incredibly responsive and incredibly kind as we got it all sorted out. And the fact that they were so responsive and outgoing in their communication really set them apart up to this point from other people that I've dealt with. It was a pleasure to work with them. I'm looking forward to buying some more things. Great people. So this is one of two Go Transit MP40PH 3C locomotives. One of the very first locomotives I was able to come across, and I got this one this past summer.
Again, a gentleman was selling it for a very fair price, and I picked it up, I put it on the track, I ran it, it went around, and I just set it aside in my staging yard. So as I've been trying to run trains more often, I decided to pull it out and start using it, and I discovered that it's not working as it ought to. The trouble I have is that when I run the train forward, it has no apparent problems, or didn't when I first started it up. But as soon as I tried to run it in reverse, I discovered that the wheels are slipping. So here it is stuck on the grade, and I just assumed it was the weight of the train, the wheels were slipping. The wheels aren't moving, it's actually the gears that are slipping. And so I have opened it up and I have taken a look inside and I have run my finger across the gears and such, and they are slipping. And you can see it here that when I just give it a gentle push and a pull, you can hear the gears are slipping. Shopping for Kato replacement parts is very convenient. Their website is fantastic. You simply work your way down from the engine all the way to the part, and you can order it online. That said, there is no purchase confirmation email, there is no shipping confirmation email, and there is no tracking number. So you go on the website, you make your purchase, you hit purchase now, and you just wait until it shows up on your doorstep without any information. Not my favorite way of doing business. One of the highlights of the month was that I got to escape the dungeon and pay a visit to my friend Darren and his Ontario Northland themed layout. Darren was good enough to host myself and our local model railroad club for a tour of his 9x9 N-scale empire. I met Darren during the pandemic, and I rediscovered him online as he also has a TikTok account. Darren is an actual real-life railroader who creates these dramatic narratives between the fictional characters on his N-scale layout, and he has their trials and tribulations play out via dramatic videos. Darren's layout is set in the mid to late 90s, and it faithfully reflects the Ontario Northland Railway in Northern Ontario, Canada. Modern buildings have replaced the roundhouse and turntable, while locomotive power mirrors the contemporary operations of the railway. The layout showcases three prominent features: Mile 49, a signaled siding, the North Bay Yard, and a 4-panel dispatch center that allows operators to manage train movements similar to rail traffic controllers, RTCs. At Mile 49, double, large capacity sidings enable safe passage and meeting of modern trains. Trains disappear clockwise into a staging yard with 2 sidings for large passenger trains linked by the main line, while the Cobalt Station, the passenger station, overlooks the yard. The North Bay Yard houses a 9-track storage area. It includes 3 classification tracks and facilitates the flow and marshalling of the large trains, along with essential switching operations and distributed power placements. The 4-panel dispatch center, a custom-built LED panel, allows operators to oversee train movements and functions much like an RTC. Currently, Darren's layout operates on DC power, and he's got plans for future DCC compatibility.
So that is my February wrap-up. A pair of new structures, custom painted GO train, a series of purchases, and a layout tour. All in all, it was a great month, and I'm looking forward to March as I will be finishing up some structures. I've got a new project I want to start, and I'm most likely going to go to the Kitchener Model Railroad show. I also want to do a quick shout out to my friends Tim, Wayan, and Darren. Tim of They Make It Like That and Wayan of Pro Scale Models have YouTube accounts, and I'm sure they would appreciate if you gave them some love. The links to their channels will be in the description of this video. And finally, Darren, who is a TikToker, I've also included a link to his TikTok channel in the description. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.